because we have a lot of exciting things to cover today, and it's so nice to see everyone. So welcome. We're going to take the first 15 minutes or so, and we will kind of go through a PowerPoint, and then we'll kind of turn it over to our guest today, Dr. Ernest Brothers from UT Knoxville. I'm very excited to have him. And again, if feel free to turn on your camera. I am recording. It's only going to stay within this group of GradTrack mentors. Totally okay if you can't turn on your camera. That is perfectly fine as well. Okay, and then so before I jump into the PowerPoint, really quick PowerPoint, I do want to jump around and introduce our awesome team here in the Office of Graduate Education. So we will be some of your touch points during this semester-long program for GradTrack. So again, I think I know most of you. I'm Jackie McDermott. I work in our Office of Graduate Education here. I'm Associate Director there. And I'm really stoked to see this program be in its second year. And I'm going to flip it over to Janet to introduce herself, and then Lexi.
Hey, everybody. So I am going to have to jump off the call here in a little bit, so I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole presentation, but I definitely wanted to come on and just say welcome, say hello, those of you that I haven't met. As Jackie said, I'm Janet Beagle. I work very closely with Jackie and with Lexi in the graduate education office. And you'll get to know me as the program goes on. I'll introduce myself more at some of the upcoming sessions, more of my background and things like that. But one point I did want to make just kind of at the outset here, this program, like Jackie said, it's in our second year. We're super excited about it. We love what happened last year. We got a lot of great feedback. We're even more excited for this year, some of the changes we made. And as all of you know, one of the goals of the program is obviously to assist the undergraduate students that you're all going to be working with. And that's an important goal of this program. But the second goal of this program that is equally important is to be an opportunity for all of you. And we want this to be a chance for you to network with each other, with individuals that maybe you haven't had a chance to connect with yet on campus, and to be an opportunity for you to develop your own professional development and anything that you think you can get out of this program along the way. And we're hoping that we can provide some support and some training and some opportunities for you, that this is going to be an excellent experience for you as well going through this semester. And of course, one of those is to have our kickoff presentation today with Dr. Ernest Brothers, and super excited that he was able to join us for a second year. He's got some great insights into mentoring, some really good things to be able to share with all of you and kind of kick this program off on the right foot. But if at any point over the course of the semester and beyond, just know that I'm a contact for you. You've obviously got Jackie and Lexi as well right there on the front lines, but anything related to the program or not, if there's just anything going on with your graduate program that you want to touch base with, I'm a resource here for you. Happy to talk to you, happy to support you as you're kind of working through your graduate program too. So just wanted to make those couple points and just put a name and a face together. And just don't ever hesitate to reach out if there's something I might be able to help you with as you go forward. And thanks so much for joining us in this program. We're super excited to have you here. I think it's going to be a really fun semester.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lexi Arinze. So I work closely with Jackie and Janet, and I think I'll be doing a lot more with you guys this semester. And I'm excited about what we're going to do and about working with you guys and the students as well. Thank you all.
And Lexi will probably be a go-to person for emails and kind of keeping track of all of the fun stuff with the program. So be sure to look out for his emails, are just as important as anything that I send. So cool. So I'm going to screen share and jump into a very quick presentation. And then we'll get started. So, again, welcome, really excited to have you guys here for this mentor training. It's an exciting kickoff for our GradTrack program. And like we said, you're the second cohort of this program ever. So, there's a really strong structure in place right now, but we know that this can constantly build and get even better year after year. So GradTrack really is still new, and I will keep on saying that because any positive feedback that you guys can continue to give us will only make this program even better. So it is a kind of this online or virtual mentoring program. Our students are going to come from all over the US and join us in on Monday nights. And the program has grown since last year. So we have almost, but not quite, doubled the number of mentors, and then also circles and students that we serve. And really the goal of the program is really to, again, like Janice said, build that community of students, both undergrad and you guys, right, who are really excited about being in grad school and doing the grad school thing and demystifying what grad school is all about, and really cultivating that next generation of graduate students. So it's really, the goal is to build and prepare the next generation of grad students. Like Janet mentioned, you guys should get some good experiences out of this, sharing your own graduate student experiences, mentoring the undergrads in these small groups, and hopefully, again, like building different professional development experiences. If there's something that's like tangential to this and you're like, oh, this would be really cool if it was incorporated into GradTrack for the mentors, let me know, let Lexi know, let Janet know. We'd love to, again, continue to build up the resources that exist for you as mentors. And then for undergrad students, the real goal by the end of the program is for them to, either submit a graduate application and kind of be competitive for that process, and get lots of eyes on their documents, and or if they're younger students, we do have younger circles who are sophomores and juniors, to prepare an application for summer undergraduate research. So again, just building that bigger network and of students interested in graduate school. I just want to give you some quick student info. So here you can see a breakdown of some of the data of our cohort for this year. We have 73 undergraduate students in total in the program. Typically, we do have some melt at the beginning of the program. Just students have classes and they have conflicts. So if that happens, we're going to try and communicate that as best as possible. You can see the breakdown here of the gender of our students, their graduation year. I said we have a lot of seniors in the program currently, and then their breakdown of race and ethnicity. And like I said, this program really is largely made up of seniors from historically underrepresented backgrounds. So we're really excited to kind of build that community. And I want to give some quick fun data from last year. So of our seniors last year, about 2/3 of them applied to grad school who told us about it. And of those 2/3 who applied to grad school, about 2/3 of those students are coming to Purdue. So, which is really, really cool. And then other students the rest of them are going to other universities, which we're equally as excited about. Our goal is that we want to support students attending graduate school, kind of period, whether that's at Purdue or someplace else. We really want to encourage students to do that. And it was really cool because actually like 2 of our seniors actually got were awarded the NSF GRFP. So that's something we want to continue to push and continue to share information about this year as well. Cool. So how does the program work and how is it structured? So when we come into meetings kind of every other week or so, we have about 2 each month for this fall semester. The students will have some pre-watch or they'll have a pre-assignment to kind of introduce a theme for the given week. We'll have a quick 20 to 30 minute presentation about kind of insider tips about that theme. And then we will break off into breakout rooms with our two of you guys as mentors in each breakout room with your 4 to 6 students. And you'll have just kind of in-depth discussion for that time. And then we'll wrap up and bring everyone kind of back and do and just introduce the monthly assignment. We have an action pack, which I'll get to shortly, which has all these assignments. And we've also added this really cool thing called the GradTrack Trophy. So it's a way to build some team building and to gamify. So students can earn points by completing different assignments. And this document is each assignment is listed as well as attendance. They can earn points when the assignments are due, how many points they'll get, and then kind of the max that you can earn. And there's a number of different assignments. We recognize circles are slightly different sizes, so we're going to do everyone in the circle can earn points, and then we kind of average and normalize the average number of points per person in the circle. So at the end of the semester, you can win exciting things for your team. So let the best circle win, and I will encourage you to all pull out your competitive spirit and lean into the GradTrack Trophy. And, again, if as anything comes up, we will continue to send emails about these things. And if you're not sure, this is all on the Microsoft Teams as well. And you can also ask Lexi if you have any questions. So one of the things that you'll be doing this semester is reviewing some documents. Like I said, a big part of the program is for the undergraduate students to get some feedback. So what we have is in the Microsoft Teams, each circle has a little channel, and in that channel you have a files area. And there's folders in that files area where students will submit their resumes or CVs, and you can do some edits on it and then drop them back in there to share those edits. So I wanted to share some quick tips for reviewing documents. It's helpful if you can provide some general feedback on kind of formatting, connecting ideas, suggesting maybe where they should add different things, more specificity for faculty. I will also share there's a template for writing a statement of purpose on there, so you can look at that and point the students to that as well. Reading through and just seeing if there's anything unclear and tweaking that wording. Those are things that you can definitely do. I would highly recommend getting them used to track changes and adding comments and how you can provide feedback, those different ways. I would not recommend, writing the statements for the students. You can say this is a helpful way of phrasing this, but do not like write things for them. And then share, I would recommend spending hours on a student, try to get through them as quickly as possible. We don't want you to be spending a lot of time on each and every student, and you can also decide with your mentor if you want to split up that review process with them if your group is a little bit larger. And always, recommend them out to different resources, writing centers, and different things like that. So we have different themes. This is just a snapshot of our GradTrack action pack. What you'll see is that along the left-hand side, there's assignments, there's meetings, and then there's a mentee action here in this column right here, and then a mentor action. So if you're ever unsure, like, what am I supposed to be doing this week, pull out the handy GradTrack action pack and say, okay, on August 22nd, I'm leading my discussion with my group. Okay, these are some other things I should do, scheduling one-on-one meetings. Okay, we're going to talk about posters, things like that. So if you have any questions, start with this and then let us know if we can fill in any gaps if you have those. And at the very end of the GradTrack action pack, if you made it that far, there are questions for each week. So sometimes what you'll have is you'll have students who come into the breakout room and then they're just really quiet. And you're like, what do I do? How do I get them to talk with me? Pull up these questions or say, hey guys, okay, we're all going to pull up the GradTrack action pack and we're going to go through these questions. And just share some of your, share some real world advice with them, like what you did or, recommendations that you have. We expect that you'll share a lot of your experiences and perspectives and lead that group discussion. But what we don't expect of you is to know all the answers. It's okay if you're like, I'm not well versed in the graduate application process. I did that, but I don't know all these answers. Reach out to me, Lexi, Janet. It's okay to not know all the answers. The key is we want to connect the students if they have questions and get them answers to their questions. So again, set some good timeframes around how much time a month you're spending, responding to your mentees, questions, reviewing essays, things like that. Okay, so some quick to-dos before we turn it on over to Dr. Ernest Brothers. Please fill out the Qualtrics survey that was in a previous email. We will drop that in the Teams. We're going to do newsletters each month. So we want to highlight you guys and some of the cool things about you, your background, where you came from, if you like crunchy versus smooth peanut butter, because who doesn't like smooth, right? No. And then there's a mentor social next week that is a good time for you guys to meet in person and get some good food. So Lexi will be kind of your point of contact for that at Wolfie's next week. Definitely introduce yourself and your MS team and your Microsoft Teams. We are doing kind of a formal analysis on how effective GradTrack is. So we're going to send you some surveys. If you're interested in participating, please do. And then you can expect that your mentor stipend will come by the middle of the fall semester. So I will be communicating out some more information about that soon. And then once this semester wraps up, we will have an optional spring meeting next in the spring as students start getting their applications or acceptances, and that's always a good time to chat over with students. So I'm going to stop screen sharing really quick. I'm going to ask if there's any questions, and if there aren't, then we'll probably take a group screenshot. Let's do this before we jump on over. Any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Anything? And if anything comes up, you can always ask too, so. No? Okay, well then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just maximize my screen real fast. And we're gonna take a group screenshot that I'll actually wind up showing our first session. So if you guys can just smile and then we'll flip on over into that. Yeah, so feel free to.
Yeah. There seems to be a question in the chat.
Oh, there is. Okay. Not chat. In the PowerPoint, you said don't. Oh, I would recommend the writing lab. Yes. Yes. Thank you for calling me on that. In case that was not clear. I definitely recommend the writing lab. So if the students need it. So. Okay. Cool. Okay, we're gonna smile and I will do, I think I have all of you guys on here. Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese. I'm gonna do a couple of them. Okay, one more, cheese. Have a funny one maybe, like silly, thumbs up. Like we're excited guys, right? No, yeah? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Keep smiling. Awesome. Okay. Great. And so with that, I'm going to quickly introduce Ernest, and then I will hand it on over. If I can find things, that's always good. Okay. Cool. Let's do this. Okay. Let's move through this. Okay. So I want to introduce Dr. Ernest Brothers. We are so excited to have you here today for our second GradTrack mentor training. Ernest is the Associate Dean at the Graduate School at UT Knoxville. He has kind of pursued his undergraduate degree in chemistry and then his master's in the natural sciences. Then, went on to pursue his Master's of Public Policy and Administration from Mississippi State University, his PhD from Jackson State in Urban Higher Education. Is really, really cool. He oversees not only the office of, or he serves as the Associate Dean of the grad school, but he also oversees the Office of Graduate Training and Mentorship at UT Knoxville. And he served in higher education as a researcher in herbicide and pesticide residue studies. He's been a chemistry professor, and he's worked in senior administration. So he's had some really cool roles and worn a lot of different hats. He also has a number of amazing positions that he's been involved in. He served as the Associate Director for Diversity Enhancement for the National Institute of Mathematical and Biological Synthesis, so NIMBIOS. And he's been a co-PI for the Program for Excellence and Equity in Research, or PEER, which is an NIH-funded program. And he also is very active regionally. And so he's been a member with the Conference of Southern Graduate Schools. And he, with some service on the executive committee and as the president in that organization. And nationally, he's served on the advisory committee for advocacy and public policy within the Council of Graduate Schools, and on the Diversity Committee and Marketing Committee with the National Association for Graduate Admissions Professionals, NAGAP. And I actually got to know each other through NAGAP, so it's pretty cool. Some of the connections that you make in your professional societies. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it on over to Ernest.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And the only other thing that was left off, I am a Marine veteran and I used to be a DJ. And I'm a minister, so I've gone full circle in that regard. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and hope technology cooperates. Okay. So my objective with this presentation is to have what I call a conversation on mentoring. And so the motivation for this, and I'm gracious that Jackie and Janet asked me to come back again to provide this training for you regarding mentoring. It's somewhat twofold. It's to not only equip you to be mentors for undergraduate students, but it's an opportunity for you to re-examine the current mentoring relationships you might be having with your faculty right now. And then also, if you're new to mentoring, there's an actual, I guess you could call it a conceptual model that you could utilize that could give you guidance in the mentoring process. So this should be painless, I hope, as we go through this. So we'll note that the challenge facing educators is to locate, matriculate, and educate and graduate minority doctoral students in STEM disciplines. So I was very encouraged by the statistics that Jackie, that you shared with the group this go around. So that was very impressive. So a few numbers here from CGS. You'll note here, according to the CGS GRE Graduate Enrollment and Degrees 2009-2019 report, there have been overall increases in first-time graduate enrollment of minority students between fall 2018 and fall 2019. So a plus 5.7% for our Latinx group, a plus 5.5% for Black and African Americans, and a plus 5.3% for Asian, and then American Indian and Alaska Native, a plus 3.5%. However, students from these demographic groups still remain substantially underrepresented as percentage shares of the graduate student population, particularly in STEM fields. So I came across this particular graph, and the source is the U.S. Department of Education, National Center for Education Statistics and Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, or IPEDS. And this is 2019-2020 data. And so in 2019-2020, there were 29,600 degrees conferred, or 16% in STEM. And we'll note, of those doctoral degrees that were conferred, 11% were awarded to those that were white, 4% that were Black, 8% that were Hispanic Latinx, 10% that were Asian, 5% Pacific Islander, 5% here American Indian or Alaska Native, 11% two or more races, and then 57% for our international student population. And that probably changed drastically due to COVID as well. But I think what's interesting when we see these lower level bars here, to me, that's always an indication that there's room for growth and we can actually do better. And so if we think about the demographics of the US, African Americans constitute 12.4%, white 57.8%, Latinx group 18.7%, Asian around 7%, and then Native Americans around 2.09%. So what's interesting about that, and when you think about where there's opportunities for growth, just imagine for your underrepresented groups, if you matched the national percentage. I think that would stimulate and give growth in that regard. So moving on, we'll note a couple of things when we think about mentoring. And that is the role that faculty can play in mentoring. So when we think about faculty, and you can also think of yourself somewhat in that role, the cultivation or developmental or mentoring relationships between graduate students and their professors is a critical factor in determining the successful completion of graduate programs. So faculty play a very key role. And so when you think about your role as it relates to undergraduate students, in many respects, you will be introducing them to ways in which they can be successful, not only in their undergraduate journey, but also putting them on the pathway to graduate school. And we note here, the extended nature of graduate students' interaction with faculty members are critical means by which they become integrated into departmental communities. This holds true even for undergraduate students, depending on where these students may come from, their first immersion or interaction within the department, they can be given heads up, as I like to say, as it relates to the political dynamics that can exist within a department. So it's very beneficial when both graduate students as well as faculty members can provide those students with those things that they need to do to be successful within those programs and departments. So we've often heard the term mentoring and advising. And so we should note that they're actually not the same, though they're often used in a synonymous way. So we know that advising is instruction or guidance that would benefit any student pursuing a particular educational course or any individual on a career path. But we'll note here that genuine mentoring involves a far deeper relationship with a student than is the role of advising the student. And so oftentimes when you say mentoring and relationship, some people get nervous. And so the idea here, when we speak of relationship, it's professional when we speak of relationship. Now, as it relates to relationships, there are roles that faculty mentors are asked to occupy or play. And so they're down here at the bottom here. A mentor can be a coach or an advisor. They can be a listener or supporter. They can be a resource person. They can be a champion. They can be a strategist. They can be a role model, sounding board. I'm probably sure if you ask Jackie, could you be all of those people? She'd probably say, no, not me. I might pick one, maybe two, but not all of them. So the good news is that when we talk later about mentoring networks, the idea here is that when we speak of mentoring networks, this ensures that faculty don't have to occupy all of these roles, but a mentee is developing what I like to call their own unique board of directors, where they identify different mentors to occupy these particular roles. So that way they're not looking for this one-all be-all person that is quite elusive if you could find that person. So we'll note here also that doctoral students typically work with an advisor during the dissertation process, and a mentoring relationship provides personal and professional support that extends beyond the traditional advising affiliation. And so for those of you that are already in a doctoral program, you probably already experienced this. So when it comes to defining mentoring, mentoring often involves career socialization, inspiration and belief in each other, and promoting excellence and passion for work through guidance, protection, support, and networking. And this might be strange to some because note here it says involving career socialization, inspiration, and belief in each other. So that lets us know that this relationship is not one directional. And as Healy points out, it is a dynamic reciprocal relationship. So that means that it goes both ways. In a work environment between an advanced career incumbent or mentor and a beginner protege or mentee, aimed at promoting the career development of both. And so because this relationship should be mutually beneficial for both the mentor and the mentee, it is only as good as what both the mentor and mentee put into it. So in other words, it's reciprocating. So we learned earlier that Jackie is a newlywed. So I'm going to give Jackie some wisdom as a newlywed. And the first thing I will tell you, Jackie, you will often hear that marriage is 50-50. I'm here to tell you that it's not. Sometimes it's 99-1. However, in the end, it all balances out. And so when we think about this reciprocal relationship, that means that both parties, both the mentor and the mentee, both have to be actively engaged in the relationship process. So with a mentoring relationship, notice these 4 points. The basis and purpose of the relationship is the guiding, advising, and supporting of the protege's growth. And here I say there should be caring, mutual respect, trust, and regard in both parties. There's a transfer and sharing of information, tips, and expertise in the process of mentoring. And then lastly, the mentor helps the protege learn and integrate into a new role or stage of personal, academic, or professional development. And we'll also note that sometimes in a mentoring relationship, the mentor must adopt different roles as the need arises. So a good example I can give here is when I was teaching chemistry at Delta State, and I was also overseeing the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation Program. And my administrative assistant was actually a work study student. And I was still very salty from the Marine Corps, not very emotional. And so one day she came into my office in tears, right? And I looked up and my initial response was tissue. And then that was it, right? And so she was kind of shocked. Tears dried up real quick. And then so I told my wife about it. She said, oh yeah, we got to work on that. You know, so the role I should have adopted, not only extending the tissue to her, but to actually listen to find out what actually was wrong. And so sometimes in real time, you might have to shift into a role of mentoring that you did not necessarily anticipate. So be leery, be aware of that. So this next slide here deals with the phases of mentoring. There are actually 4. There's an initiation phase, there's a cultivation phase, there's a separation phase, and then lastly, a redefinition phase. And so the initiation phase is just like it sounds. And so this is when both the mentor and mentee are first meeting each other. And so it's during this phase that you begin to establish your needs and expectation as relates to this relationships. You're establishing the when, where, and what. In other words, where you will meet, when you will meet, how often you will meet, what's the best modes of communication, things of that nature. And so to kind of help you with that awkward phase, and the good news is that really Jackie and Janet have done all the work. They basically have provided you with a formal structure which to operate. And there are 2 types of mentoring. There's formal and informal. So you have the formal structure that is in place, but the informal piece is what's going to actually come about as you grow in that mentoring relationship. So that's very much dependent on both you and the mentee growing in that relationship. So if you get to that awkward point in the initiation phase where the mentee is looking at you and you're looking at the mentee, something that can help you with this is referred to as an IDP or individual development plan. And it's just like it sounds. In other words, an individual development plan is basically what the mentee hopes to accomplish in this relationship, or what they hope to accomplish in this academic year. So it's somewhat like a roadmap to what they want to do. And you know here, this one is specifically for those that are in STEM. You can go to the page there, myidp.sciencecareers.org, and it provides you with a template for that actual individual development plan. A little history, I think it was in 2014, NIH required any student and postdoc that participated on a grant that they had to have an IDP. Me and my finite wisdom, I won't say infinite, and my finite wisdom felt like, well, why limit it to just those that are participating on an NIH grant? Why not all graduate and professional students have an individual development plan? Makes sense to me. And so there are a couple of other ones. This one here in particular, this is the one that we've utilized at our campus. It relates to our graduate students that are participating in what we call the Tennessee Doctoral Fellows Program. Just shows you skill assessment and some goals, long-term career goals, and then other goals, and then comments from the advisor. And then here's some other additional information. But this one was specific to a program that we've utilized in our graduate school. And this one here is actually for the humanities. Imagine PhD, career exploration and planning tool for the humanities and social sciences. So there are different IDPs for different areas. The next phase is the cultivation phase. And so what's unique about the cultivation phase, what you determine in the cultivation phase is what actually worked. And so what works, you want to continue to build upon. And then there's also an opportunity for you to make adjustments. So say, for instance, you may have thought that we could potentially meet every week, but due to extenuating circumstances, labs, work, whatever, you might say, well, once a week might not work, maybe once a month might work. From a communication standpoint, would you rather communicate via text? Would you rather communicate via email? Good example, this is a mobile device. And so if I were to call my son and he would see my face, he probably would not pick up. However, if I sent him a text, he would probably text me back 6 times to my one text because that's his preferred mode of communication. However, as a compromise, he knows that we have to talk on the phone at least once or twice a week. And so you have to find out what communication works best for both the mentor and the mentee. The next phase, the separation phase. Now, this is one of my favorites, not because of how it sounds, but when you have a mentor or you become a mentor, does not necessarily mean that you are a mentor for life. And so the time limit in which a person can be a mentor, it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 5 years. However, when the relationship is no longer mutually beneficial to both the mentor and the mentee, then you can actually separate. And hopefully it will be an amicable separation, but you can actually separate. The last one here is the redefinition phase. And you note it says both individuals continue to have some contact on an informal basis in order to continue the mutual support created in earlier years. So a good example of this, my mentor, Dr. Joseph Stevenson, he was the basically the founder and executive director of the PhD program that I was in. He was a provost, has 5 degrees, scholar, academician. And in my mind, I'm like, what could I possibly offer this individual? And because my background was more so in the recruitment and retention of underrepresented minorities in STEM, when there was an occasion where this was a problem or an enigma he had been challenged to figure out, then I would get the call. And so our relationship was redefined, where I shifted from being the mentee to becoming the mentor. In other words, our relationship had been redefined. And that redefinition was able to come about because we maintained that relationship over time. All right, here's some communicating expectations. And this is huge. There's poor communication between both the mentor and the mentee. It is not going to work. It will definitely fail. So as the mentor, it's important to communicate your expectations of your mentee, create a plan with your mentee of how to achieve milestones on the way to reaching their goals, adapt your feedback to your mentee's learning and communication styles. That's important. Can't say enough about that. And then set realistic timelines. For the mentee should communicate their expectations to you as the mentor. They should discuss their goals with you and create a plan of how they will achieve those milestones on the way to reaching those goals. And then also, mentee should inform the mentor about their learning and communication preferences. And then lastly, they should set realistic timelines for themselves. And that's the beauty of the individual development plan. It gives you an opportunity to sit down with that mentee and say, you know what? I know your aspirational goal is to publish 3 articles before the end of the semester, but I think we can pull that back just a little bit to have that realistic timeline there. This section is the mentoring model that I made mention of. So Blanchard and Diaz-Ortiz, they use the acronym for mentor to develop this model, where the M represents mission, the E engagement, the N network, the T trust, the O for opportunity, and then the R for review and renewal. So when we think about the mission, the goal here is to develop a short mission statement that will ensure that the needs and expectation of both the mentor and the mentee are met. So this makes it somewhat contractual in some ways, and that's where that IDP or individual development plan comes into play to ensure that both the mentor and the mentee know what's expected of both parties as they enter into this mentoring relationship. The E is for engagement. So it's important for the mentor and the mentee to agree on the when, where, and how communication and scheduled meetings. And so if both the mentor and the mentee are not engaged in this process, once again, it is not important. In other words, you begin to drift at that point. The N is for network. And so developmental networks can be expanded through the contacts of both the mentor and the mentee. So what that tells us tonight, for those of you that might look me up later on LinkedIn or ask me later, do you know anyone that has expertise in this particular area? So in other words, my network now becomes your network and vice versa. And that's mutually beneficial for both the mentor and the mentee when you can have this exchange as it relates to your network. The T is for trust. And so without trust, it will go nowhere. So trust is a core value of the mentoring relationship. Honesty and clear communication should foster the trust between the mentor and the mentee, and cannot say enough about the communication. The O is for opportunity. Here, create opportunities to grow for both the mentor and the mentee. And this could be generationally, culturally, or professionally. So in other words, this opportunity to have this exchange generationally, culturally, or professionally is important, both for the mentor and the mentee. And more so, I think, for the mentee, because oftentimes the mentee, they're not really, they're questioning what could I possibly add, what could I give to a graduate student to help that graduate student, or what could I share? And so because we have generational differences, and because we come from different cultures and backgrounds, and because we've had different experiences professionally, it's an opportunity to have that exchange. And like I say, it should be reciprocating, going both ways. And I like to say the idea of cultural exchange, something that works really, really well is food. Typically, food is a good place to have a cultural exchange. A colleague of mine, her name is Rachel Ray, Dr. Rachel Ray, not the Rachel Ray, the cook, but Dr. Rachel Ray. And so Rachel and I first met when we were doing recruitment. And so Rachel happened to see my profile on Facebook. And so I have a photo album called Cooking with Dr. B. And so everything I cook, I typically post on Facebook. It's just a hobby that I do. And so Rachel said, hey, I have an authentic Chinese cookbook I would like to give you. Hey, I'm excited. An authentic Chinese cookbook, don't have it, looking forward to it. She sent it to me in campus mail. I said, you know what? I'll wait till I get home and open it there. Get home, open it up. And the first thing I noticed, one, there are no pictures. And then two, it's all in Mandarin. And so I called Rachel and I said, hey, what's up with this? You got jokes. I can't read it and I don't have any pictures. What am I supposed to do with this? She said, I will translate it for you, give you the history behind the dish, and then you have to prepare it. So that was a mechanism where we could culturally exchange dishes that were unique to her childhood and growing up. And then also I could share dishes that I typically prepared as one growing up in the Mississippi Delta in that regard. But it was a launching pad for us to have that exchange. So you look for those, whether it's generationally, whether it's culturally, or professionally. And the last thing here, the R is for review and renewal. And oftentimes this is overlooked, but I think it's very important in mentoring process. You need to review from time to time, and that's also where the individual development plan comes in as well. So with the review and renewal, in order to monitor the progress of the mentoring relationship, it is necessary to schedule times of review to determine if your mission is being accomplished or if changes need to be made. So as that wonderful format that Jackie and Janet have provided for you, if something is not working, that is the time to address it with that review and that renewal. And so that review and renewal will not come about if there's not good communication. So once again, communication plays a factor. All right, the last segment here deals with two aspects of mentoring, cross-cultural and network mentoring. And so we'll note, as it relates to cross-cultural mentoring, navigating a multicultural environment requires mentoring from a cross-cultural context. And David and Foster Johnson argue that a major flaw of traditional mentoring programs is the exclusion of differences between racial and ethnic groups. So cross-cultural mentoring involves an ongoing, intentional, and mutually enriching relationship with someone of a different race, gender, ethnicity, religion, cultural background, socioeconomic background, sexual orientation, or nationality. So what that tells us in cross-cultural mentoring, your mentee may not look like you, they might not have a background like you, and it does not matter. What's important is that you have a vested interest in the individual that's in front of you. So the gentleman on the screen, that's Dr. Henry Outlaw. That was my mentor when I was an undergrad. And so when I finished my bachelor's degree in chemistry from Delta State, I was one of 2 African-American males that completed that. And there were no faculty of color in the department. And so Dr. Outlaw was my mentor, and our backgrounds were vastly different. However, he took an interest in me as an individual and was very instrumental in not only helping me graduate from undergrad, but encouraging me to go to graduate school for a master's and then later PhD, because with the PhD, he asked me while I took the position at Delta State, he said, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I'm like, I don't know, probably the first African-American president of Delta State University. He said, well, you need a PhD for that. I'm like, man, this school stuff won't go away. But had I not had those conversations with him, he would not have put me on the trajectory where I am today. So when it comes to network mentoring, here's something as relates to staff. Mentoring for staff might include working with an individual or network to identify answers to questions about a particular department or the campus community as a whole. So if you want good mentors, clean close to administrative staff. They typically can tell you a lot of resources are on campus. So we know that network mentoring encourages individuals to draw support from a diverse set or team of mentors. In other words, a network rather than an individual provides the functions associated with mentoring. So as I share with you, the whole idea here is to develop your own unique board of directors. In other words, you're assembling a team of mentors that are providing you with the support in the areas that you need it the most. So that support, it could be, say for instance, it could be family, it could be peer support, it could be faculty support, it could be those that are both internal to the department, it could be those that are external, but whatever team that you need to assemble. So to give you an example of network mentoring, so when I was in my PhD program, my wife was part of my mentoring network. And so her role was that of a motivator. So it just so happened that one Sunday, and we're both avid football fans, and I was in there working on my dissertation. And so she was in there watching her favorite team, the Houston Texans. And so she was shouting and screaming. And, you know, in a moment of weakness, you know, I slammed my laptop down. I said, you know what? I am done. I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I am done. So at that moment, I hear the television go off. And then if you've ever seen the movie Friday the 13th, how Jason walks up on you unsuspectedly. So I hear movement. Our house had wood floors. So I hear her approaching. And so, and as she enters the area where I'm at, she asked me a very simple question. She says, is there a problem? Now, me being a Marine veteran, 5'10", 240, give or take, I'm like, I think I got this. I'm like, yeah, there's a problem. I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I am done. So at this moment, my wife, who's about 5'7", became a transformer. And I think she grew to about 6'3" in front of me. I still remember it very vividly. And then she pulled me real close and she said, let me explain something to you, player. This PhD is not just about you, it's about us. And I suggest you get yourself together and get back on that laptop. I said, yes, ma'am. And to today, I have my PhD. But she was the motivator. She was the motivator on my mentoring network. So wherever you need those areas, that's what you identify. So I want to share this last thing with you. And this is actually, you can find this at the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, but it's a mind map or how you can develop a mentoring network map. And you could utilize this also to help the undergraduate students as well lay out a mentoring network as it relates to resources they might need. And so these blocks here, these can be changed to whatever you feel you may need. So the areas here are professional development, emotional support, intellectual community, safe space, role models. And so you note here, there are indication there may be those that are internal, there may be those that are external. Emotional support here, there are friends and families, intellectual community. I always encourage students to establish communities of practice. In other words, these are individuals that are going through the same thing or have the same interests that you do research-wise, so that's a very good area. A safe space where you can go. In other words, you feel that as a space that you can go and freely vent without fear of repercussion, role models, and the list goes on and on. But it's a good tool to help you develop that mentoring network. So lastly, these are some of my mentors over the years that are part of my board of directors. So here we have Dr. Tanjanita Johnson. She's the Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, University of Alabama System. Dr. Joseph Stevenson, whom I mentioned earlier, founder, executive director for the PhD in Urban Higher Education at Jackson State University. Now, Dr. Johnson and I were classmates. And so we graduated #1 and #2 in the program. I will not say who was #1 and I will not say who was #2, but we graduated #1 and #2 in the program. We were peer-to-peer mentors. In other words, when we were working at 2 institutions that were about 50 miles apart. And so we made a pact while we were in the PhD program that if no one else graduated, we were definitely going to bond and put our heads together and work as hard as we could to get through that program. Here's Dr. Tia Dumas, who's at Clemson University, Associate VP for Strategic Alliances with the Office of the Provost. And then lastly, Nashara Mitchell, Lecturer and Innovation Lab Director at Butler University. Nashara was responsible for me becoming the president for the Conference of Southern Graduate Schools because she pushed me out there. She was like, I think you should do it. I'm like, I'm not really sure. She said, I really think you should do it. And I said, oh, okay. And so I'm grateful for her for that. And then actually Dr. Tia DeBoss, Tia and I both were similar capacities within the graduate school, and particularly as related to professional development. We've had opportunities to co-present with each other as well. And she's always been a good sounding board when I'm considering professional development opportunities for grad school. But all these individuals in their different capacities, when I need assistance or I need to bounce something off, I can always reach out to these individuals to get that insight that I need. And I will say this about your board of directors or mentoring network, and you can also share this with undergraduate students as well. As you progress in your career, your board of directors will change because of your aspirational goals. And so as your aspirational goals changes, your rotation in your mentoring network might also change as well. And so with that, that is the end of this presentation. And to demonstrate that I did not make this up, these are references as well. And I will stop the share and we can open it up for questions. Thank you.
Let's give a virtual round of applause, Director Ernest Brothers. And then, yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask or drop in the chat, whatever works best.
Hi, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sapro. I needed clarification when you mentioned, if I believe, the 4 stages of mentorship. So does one progress through all 4 stages, or is it like, I'm just trying to really get a better sense of how it flows, because I remember you mentioned the separation phase and you mentioned the redefinition phase. So I wasn't sure if someone has to go to the separation phase before they get to the redefinition phase. Can you clarify that?
So and I would say yes, one would have to go through the initiation phase before they got to the separation phase. And so the initiation phase is basically when both the mentor and the mentee have an opportunity to sit down and have a discussion about, just like you will be doing in the not too distant future, you'll be sitting down with your mentee and having a conversation about what is their expectation out of this relationship. You will share what your expectation is out of this relationship. And then after you've had that initial conversation and dialogue, and you come back and meet a second time and had an opportunity to think about what you discussed in that initiation phase, you might discover, well, this might not actually work. So you continue, as I like to say, massage it, cultivate it until you craft the best relationship possible. Now, the separation phase comes about. You could bypass the separation phase if you become mentor for life for the mentee. So there would be no need for the separation. However, at the end of this wonderful program, the mentee might decide, it was good, but you know what? I really liked you, but I think I might be going in another direction. I might benefit from either another mentor or set of mentors. And so then that's when the separation phase would come into effect. And like I said, the redefinition phase, it could be once that student graduates, they maintain a relationship with you, they stay in contact, you stay connected. And then, once you get your PhD and then that student decides that, they're going to go ahead and finish their PhD. And then all of a sudden that person now, becomes a provost of an institution, and then they reach out to you and, now they're mentoring you. And so that's when the redefinition phase. In some ways, it's somewhat, I guess, I know I'm dealing with STEM people and we think in a linear fashion. And so there is kind of like that progression from one phase to the next. But it's not like you would start out with the separation phase. It will start out with the initiation phase. Good question, though.
And I will chime in and say that at our first session, we will have the students define their goals for the program. And so like I have it as a bullet point on the action pack. So they're going to sit down and think about, what do I want to get out of this program? And, how, one thing that you guys can do is say, okay, how do we play a role as mentors in that, right? And you can kind of talk about your expectations, and it'll look different for each mentor, each circle, so and each group of students. So I definitely want to encourage you to, feel empowered to take that and run with it, because like I said, it will look different for each and every person.
And I will tell you, as structured as it is, it would not be perfect. And so don't be disappointed if when you first meet and the mentee gives you that stoic look like, now what? And so just understand it's a process. And some things work, some things don't. And so the key here is to be adaptable and flexible with this process. And I'll tell you from experience, if I had the solution that would ensure that every mentoring relationship was perfect, I would not be at the University of Tennessee right now. I'd be in an undisclosed location because of the millions that I would profit from with this. So understand that I like to share with people, don't seek perfection from imperfect people. And so that's why it's a process. And as this mentee is growing, you're also growing as well, because you might be new to this. You might have some uncertainty, going into the process, but it's an opportunity for both to grow together. And that's how you should embrace it.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. Feel like anything, really anything. Feel free to ask. Yeah, Juan.
Hi, my name is Juan. I was looking at the faculty diversity map, and I'm curious about two types of these roles, like the sponsorship and the accountability. So I was wondering if a mentor, just for providing some kind of a sponsorship in terms of money, that's sufficient to consider that person a mentor? And also, what is accountability in this context?
So from an accountability standpoint, say for instance, let's say you're a person that does not like to write. Mm-hmm. And so you have a mentor that ensures that you're accountable to write what you said you were going to write. Let's say that a person might be one that is not very time oriented. And so you have a person that holds you accountable for being time oriented. And when we think about sponsorships, sometimes sponsorships are more associated with corporate. than academia. I'll put it that way. But once again, when it comes to that mentoring network map, and once again, that was just an illustration of areas that you could have as related to roles that you needed the mentor to play in. And so say for instance, Dr. McDermott, she might occupy a mentoring role. She could be that confidant. She could be that listening ear. She could be that inspirer, that motivator. In my case, because I'm a minister and a Marine veteran, I can go two extremes. You know, I can be the consoling, you know, listening, or I could be like in your face type individual if I needed to be. But whatever roles that you feel that you need to help you accomplish your aspirational goals, those are the mentors that you want to identify in those different areas.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna has her hand raised.
Yes, when talking about the different roles of mentors and what they play in your life, I've come from 10 years of industry, and one thing that I had a hard time doing, especially when talking to my managers, is, you know, who's your mentor? And I could always identify people who were informally helping me, or mentoring me, but I had a hard time identifying people who were formally mentoring me because it felt very transactional. In a way where I felt as though if I had to sit down and have an agreement or classify you as my mentor, then the relational aspect of it wasn't there, and it felt transactional. So I didn't feel comfortable considering them like my mentor, because I see that also as a form of relationship. So how do you, how is there a way, especially like when we're engaging with our different mentees, and I know you mentioned like they don't know us yet. So at first it may seem very transactional. What does that look like when it comes to having that friendship mentoring versus something that feels as though it's an obligation?
Yeah, so the friendship aspect of it, that's what comes about or can come about from that formal aspect. So a formal relationship is just basically give a starting point. So say for instance, there are some programs that assign a faculty member to a graduate student when they first come in. So that's a formal initiation, so to speak. The informal comes about later as the relationship grows. Now, most will argue the best relationship that comes about is the one that occurs organically. In other words, there's no pressure that this person has to be the mentor or not. So this is a very structured process, and it's structured by design. However, what's unstructured is the relationship that will come about over time. And so most people will tell you that, you know, the best relationship that I established was not necessarily one that was orchestrated by the area that I was in, but this person that I met at a conference and had a conversation about a paper that they wrote, and I was interested in their research. And then over time, we began to have this rapport, which later blossomed into a relationship. Another way to look at it, a person could just simply occupy a role of mentoring, all right? So in other words, that person is filling a space or a particular role that's helping you with your aspirational goal. That might not be an established relationship as people think of an established relationship, but they have provided a resource or help you in some way to satisfy or meet your aspirational goals. And so, and some people shut down when they're like, oh, no, I don't want nothing formal. I'm not here for that. I'd rather, and that also gives you an indication what you would look for in an actual mentoring relationship. So you might feel more comfortable with something that's organic. There are others that may feel more comfortable with something that's structured. And so both the mentor and the mentee have to figure out or identify where they feel the most comfortable, something that's happening organically or something that requires a little more structure, because especially for undergraduate students, you probably need to give them a little structure first so they have a good understanding of what the expectations are in the process. Good question.
Thank you.
It looks like Ruben, you have your hand
Ruben.
raised.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. continue with the conversation about like organic versus more structured way of mentoring. In my experience, what I have seen is like one of the most difficult decisions is to make the matching process, like making, okay, this is going to be the mentee and this is going to be the mentor, and define that in terms of some type of criteria. When you were talking about cross-cultural mentorship, it sounds like the most important part is that interest of the mentor and the mentee in that relationship. But sometimes, I don't know, let's say that's both have that part, like both are interested. In addition to that, what is, in terms of your experience, what you consider is the most important part when doing that matching, like, let's say gender, let's say professional relationships, or cultural differences, or how does it play a role in all of that process?
Yeah, so I think, good question, and I hope you're not driving. I think the important thing with the match, particularly as it relates to the mentor and the mentee, from a cross-cultural standpoint, the mentor has to have an appreciation of the social, political, and historical context of the individual that's in front of them. So in other words, if you're not taking that into consideration before you try to immerse this person into a situation or an environment that they have never experienced, that literally puts them at risk. And so I think what's important as it relates to a relationship is getting to know the person that's in front of you. That's where it starts. That's where the conversation starts. And oftentimes that's the most awkward part, because, some people are willing to share and then some are not, but that happens over time. And so the best example I like to use is what I call touch points. So for a lot of you, when you interact with these students, they've been blind to a lot of stuff. And all of a sudden you've given them sight to things that they had never thought of and never considered. However, they might have sight, but now they need clarity. And so to get clarity, you have to continue to give them these multiple touches. That's why by design, you have these touches through these meetings to ensure that you're continuing to foster those relationships. And then this is where communication is so important, both between the mentor and the mentee, and then also managing those expectations, because both the mentor and the mentee have to say, this is my level of comfort. This is my level of comfort. And you begin to work through that. And like I said, if I had the secret sauce or the magic bullet that I could provide you and give you to make this real easy, I would. So sometimes it's literally trial and error. Some things work, some things don't work. It could be the IDP might be overwhelming to the student. So you can then say, well, let's put that aside. What is it that you really, really want to do? And let's try to work towards that. So just know that it's a process. It's not going to happen the first night when you meet. It will evolve over time. And that's the thing about it. Structurally is time limited, but informally, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, thank you.
And I will chime in quickly and just say how the circles were designed. They were designed specifically, or they tried to be designed as closely related as possible to the engineering discipline that you guys are in. So the students in your circle, I really did try to put, Jonathan's chemical engineering. So I tried to have at least chemical engineering or maybe materials adjacent, right? So like the circles are kind of designed in that sense. And then we really did try to also have a gender balance there, which I think was really important to us as program administrators. So
if it doesn't work out, blame Jackie.
Yeah. We try. It's never like Ernest said,
never perfect.
It's never perfect. But we do hope that, if they can get something from you and you can get something from them, just kind of feeding on that common shared discipline. And then also kind of their group based off of age. So like I said, all of the seniors are kind of in their own circles. There's only one circle that kind of has crossover between age groups. So
excellent. Emily, I see your hand raised.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I was wondering, this is going to be my first time formally mentoring, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm also a bit nervous about the mistakes that come along. And you mentioned that everyone has those, but I was just kind of curious if you could give us any sort of guidance of common mistakes maybe that you've seen, and maybe things that you might avoid, especially maybe early on as we're excited about this.
So I think common mistakes are breakdowns in communication. Cannot say enough about that. And the only way, and the other thing too is if in any way that whether you've been offended by that person or that person has been offended by you, is to get to resolution quickly. And, you know, and expressing, it's never intentional. You know, you want to keep the objective in front of the person. In other words, the whole motivation for this is to give you the support and guidance that you need to put you on a pathway to graduate education if that's what you want. The nervousness is just natural because it's something that you haven't done before. The good news is that it's structured, so you don't have to expend a whole lot of energy, worrying about the structure, but you can put more energy into how can I foster this to evolve organically. And so, and some mistakes that you make, you just, as my son tells me, you just keep it moving in that regard, because like I say, some mistakes that mentee might be unaware of, but if you highlight it and put emphasis on it, then it just puts like this light that's in my face right now. It just shines a light on it. So expect, and you can say that. Something I say in ministry all the time to make people feel good on Sunday is, we are all still under construction. And so that gives you, as I like to say, some grace and space to make mistakes, because they're going to happen. But ultimately, when you're demonstrating that your intentions are good, you have the best interests of that student, I think that'll typically overcome any mistakes or challenges you might have.
And to quickly piggyback on that, like I said earlier, you don't have to have all of the answers for some of these things that we discuss. And Ernest said it great, like, it's okay, like, give yourself some grace. It's okay if, you're like, that's a great question, student X, I don't know the answer to that. Like, it's okay to say that. And that's also why you have a co-mentor. So if you don't know something, maybe they do. If you both don't know something, then just be like, okay, we're going to go, like, Microsoft Teams message Jackie and figure this out. Right. And we can follow up and do that. So it's okay, again, to not know everything. It's okay to be nervous and like, be like, I said this last week and, I've looked into it and that's not the best thing. And here's like the better, correct, more better answer to this question. And that's okay too. So it's okay to say, what I said last week, yes, it was correct, but this is a better way. That next week, it's okay to admit that, that we're not perfect, and, just to continue to evolve there. So
you probably couldn't tell, but, I was a little nervous coming on tonight. And that's just me. That's just the humility in me, because we're all capable of making mistakes. And so I would be kidding myself if I thought that could not occur, that could not happen. And so despite all the accolades that you had or you heard, I'm still just Ernest Brothers. I'm just human and I'm fallible. And so, and I embrace it. And so that nervousness, as you get more comfortable with the interactions and more comfortable interacting with the individual, it becomes a little bit easier, and then too, the other thing I do encourage you to do as well, if you can, with your mentee, find something to laugh at, because they're stressed, you're stressed, so my wife and I, we've done this for years. We find something to laugh at every day, even if it's each other, she'll talk about, I call it the knowledge peak at the top of my head, so she'll joke about something about that, and that's all good. But the goal is you want, from a relationship standpoint, you want both yourself and the mentee to feel comfortable in this interaction. And it might not happen on the first meeting. It might not happen on the second meeting. It will evolve over time. And so, that's why I say you just have to give yourself that room and don't be too hard on yourself in this process. It's a learning experience for all involved. So embrace it for that.
Thank you both.
Absolutely. Jackie is the expert. I'm just here.
This is the beauty also of a program being in its second year, guys. Like, you can even say that, be like, this is my first time mentoring. And, you know, I'm really excited to get to know each and every one of you, right? Like, you can do that in your introduction when you're meeting the students, or maybe like, you know, you say, these are my goals and what I'm really excited about. And, you know, again, the more you can bring like your own examples, the stronger that trust will be as you kind of start to grow your circle. So that I think is like a solid piece of advice there.
That is so true. And keep in mind that you've already been through what they're encountering or going through. So you have a point of reference that you can utilize. So if you ever wonder, what is it that I can actually talk about? I'm speaking now generationally, not knowing all the generations present. I myself am a Gen X. But I do know it has been my experience, millennials as well as Gen Z, they like a good story. And so if you have a good story that you can share, you will have an undivided attention. My son is millennial, and a police officer, and he always emphasized me, keep it 100, Dad. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep it 100, whatever that means. I'm gonna keep it 100.
Does anyone else know what that? I have no clue what that means. No. Okay, cool. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask or drop into the chat.
I have a question. Shauna and Imani, are you twins by chance?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll just make sure. I'm making sure I wasn't saying doubles, you know, because I was like, okay, I know it's the end of the day. So I just want to make sure that my eyes were not failing me in that regard. Excellent.
It's not some fun Zoom filter that no. They are both awesome.
That's why I asked, you know. I'll tell my wife I was saying doubles, and she's like, what? So
Cool. I know we also have some mentors from last year on here. If you guys have any like solid piece of advice that you're like, okay, this happened, and you know, maybe this is how I dealt with it, or if you have any questions related to that, being a mentor last year, feel free to shout those out, but also don't want to put you on the spot. So. I will also say that a lot of your circle is going to be getting used to silence like this sometimes, because that is how you get people to talk. So just be okay with some silence as well. Silence is okay.
I typically say I typically pause 30 seconds for silence on Zoom. That's my cutoff. I'll give you 30 seconds. Nobody says anything after then, then I will inject. And then the silence is good because as a STEM person, typically when there's silence, that means we are processing. So it's okay. All right. Some people just process faster than others. It's okay with that. And I think, you know, what's good about this whole experience will help you grow, particularly with interpersonal skills. You know, oftentimes STEM people get a bad reputation that we have no personality, and, you know, we just laboring with our work and things of that nature. And that was the first thing my wife noticed, like, you actually have personality. And sometimes you can be funny. I never saw that coming. And so this is also what you want to illustrate and show to your mentees, you know, that you're genuine, you're not robotic, you're not a cyborg of some kind. So, excuse me, as much as you can, kind of demystify that part, you know. And once again, you do what you're comfortable. You know, if you're not accustomed to telling jokes, it's okay. You don't have to tell a joke, all right? You still have to be who you are, still be your authentic self. But just keep in mind, the whole goal of this process is to place a mentee on a pathway, and it might lead to beyond just graduate school. When we talk about mentoring, it goes beyond just the quote unquote professional development that we think about. You know, sometimes it's just life happens, you know, and sometimes a story that you might share when they're struggling might be the motivation or the testimony that they needed to hear you know, to keep moving or be encouraged or be inspired, because they might be looking at you as like, and this is called power group dynamics. They might be looking at you're here and I'm here, right? And so you want to close that as much as you can. Say a question.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Brothers. That was a nice presentation.
Thanks,
I was
sir.
just responding to Jackie's question about people who have already been mentors. So I was a mentor last year, and from my experience, I can say one thing is that sometimes the mentees that we are working with, they have different expectations or different goals. That somebody is a sophomore, somebody might be a senior, somebody wants to go for a PhD, somebody wants to go for a master's degree, different goals, different expectations and aspirations. So as mentors, when we are talking to them, sometimes we have to find a balance in a way to cater to the needs that they have, and make sure that nobody is kind of left, and they have space to get all their questions answered. And some people are really quick and they have already done a lot of homework in terms of preparing themselves for grad school. Some people have not done that. So find a balance of taking all people together and helping them realize whatever their individual goals are, and also still be able to contribute to their overall goal of going to grad school. Yeah, that could be a little challenge sometimes, but I think over time it gets better.
Excellent.
So that was my
Excellent.
suggestion.
Jackie, you have your presenter for next year.
Thank you. That was very kind of you.
Yes, thanks, Abhishek. Mhm. We all have our strengths, and so it's why it's always fun when we have mentors from last year who can come and share and be awesome mentors this year too. And then it's nice to have all of you guys in here who are new mentors with fresh perspectives. There's again just so many different angles, and again nothing will be perfect, but the goal is to keep the ship going, right? And to make sure everyone kind of gets the help that they need in the group, and or not even help, because some students are like, I got this. I just need that additional person to bounce stuff off of. And it will be really cool to see how mentees become your peers. So we actually have at least one of our mentors was a GradTrack mentee last year. So so it's really cool to kind of see the evolution of all of our mentors too. Yeah, Carrie Ann, I think you had your hand raised first.
I do. I have more of a practical question. I believe most of the people in the program, most of the mentees were seniors, but you had a couple freshmen on that list and sophomores. Most of the assignments are more leaning towards grad school applications. So the seniors, they're going to be in the middle of that. But with the freshmen and the sophomores, are they just going to be writing like general statement of purposes for us to review?
Yeah, so there's, I believe, 3 circles that have students who are rising sophomores and juniors, and they don't have seniors. So those students are going to be more focused on the summer research kind of piece. And so I actually we have a statement of purpose template that I kind of pulled out all the grad school stuff, and I inserted a whole bunch of summer research stuff. So it's going to be more of a essay to talk about some of the leadership things maybe they've done in their undergrad, and talk about maybe some of the research they've done or some of the classes that excites them. So it is a slightly different lens kind of over, but all of the topics are really geared towards grad school, but the assignments will be tweaked for those younger students. Yeah.
Okay.
Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Caitlin.
Hi. I guess since in the circles we're going to have 2 mentors in every circle, which I think is great, but are there any guidance or thoughts on how to be part of a mentoring team in that way? As I think, talked about, cultivating a board of directors and everything, but this is actually a chance where, 2 of the mentors are working together. So if there's particular strategies, things for that, I'd be interested to hear about that.
I don't know, Ernest, have you heard anything, or do you have any strategies for mentoring teams? maybe? Or is that?
I'd say a strategy for mentoring teams is be adaptable. You know, say for instance, all of you as mentors, you will get to know each other, get to know one another's strengths. So it's possible, you know, a mentee might say, well, I have an interest in this. And like, well, I think Emily might be a good person that, you know, that could give you some insight on that. So, and then the goal is to introduce them to the possibilities as relates to mentoring. And then also dispelling the idea that they have to identify just this one be all person to help them to be successful. And then just demonstrating that this is an exercise that can help you go forward. In other words, when it comes to this mentoring network, it's something that's evolving and ongoing. And so by the time this is over, they will have so many to look at, choose from, and then not to also mention the peer-to-peer mentoring that they will also have an opportunity to feel as well. And so sometimes as a community of practice, I don't know if this is in part of your process, Jackie, but there are times where the mentors can get together and debrief a little bit about, you know, what they're experiencing, what's working, what's not working, you know, and kind of make those adjustments. And then also you can make recommendations based on what you're hearing from those that you're mentoring as well. So it's be fluid, you know, and I guess I'm trying to say, be fluid within a structure, you know, don't have it so rigid where you feel that you don't have any wiggle room, you know. So I know Jackie and Janet very well. So I know that they're not going to be so like, you crossed the line, you went outside of the line, you know, you're supposed to stay within the lines, you know. So and then too, don't be afraid to ask questions, particularly to that's why Jackie and Janet are there, you know, to give you that additional insight. Or feel free to contact me if you feel the need to as well. You know, just say I'm participating in the GradTrack program, and I'd be more than happy to assist or answer a question. If I don't know the answer, then I will direct you to someone that does.
And I absolutely love that piece of advice. Like the more that you can get to know your co-mentor, the better. Because, you know, again, you don't have to be an expert on everything. And your co-mentor will have different strengths than you do. And that's great. That's what we want, right? So you do want to team, and you do want to have good communication with your co-mentor. And certainly if you want to like hang on at the end of, you know, a GradTrack session and just jump back into the breakout room with your co-mentor and say, okay, hey, this worked, this didn't work. Like, how can we tweak things for next week? Or, you know, maybe let's divide up the resumes, like you take these guys, I'll take these guys, right? Like you can definitely do that. So have good communication. I think that will be the strength to your team mentorship, kind of with as pairs. Communication with your co-mentor is so important. And so I think having that conversation not only with your circle, like what's the best way of communicating, but having that conversation with your co-mentor. Okay, you know, what are we really going to focus on? Or maybe we'll tag team this week, or reflecting, this worked well, this didn't, is really, really important. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Caitlin. Well, I think we are just about out of time. So let's thank again Ernest for his time and give a nice virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for your time again. And thank you, mentors, for all the time that you will spend kind of mentoring our undergrads. If you have questions, or if anything comes up, like let me know, let Lexi know. We'll definitely kind of field those as we go. So yeah, excellent. Well, thank you again. And
Thank you.
yeah, and you guys can go off, and we will connect up again next week for the mentor social. So thank you guys.
Stay safe. Have a good semester.
Yeah. Good luck, Ernest. You got this.
As I say, we do what we do and we go home.
Yeah. And I super appreciate the later night tonight. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries. No worries. So once again, it looks like a very good group. I'm excited for you. It seems like, as we say, it gets better and better every year. It's hard to believe that, you know, this is the second year. I mean, so
we've tweaked a lot compared to
Yeah.
last year. So I'm really excited to see. We had a lot of good debriefs with our mentors last year, and they were like, you should try this, try this. So we're like, okay, let's implement them, let's try it and see if it's better. So
Excellent, excellent. The only thing left now is I have to come to Purdue at some point.
actually, so I'll be in Knoxville for Tau Beta Pi is having their convention in October or so, I
Okay.
think. So I'll have to like text
Yeah,
you.
let me know.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
feed
shoot
you.
you an email. So
Yeah,
I think
I'll feed you.
I think I have a Friday.
Okay.
So I think there's a grad fair on Thursday or Friday morning. So I'm driving down. So I'm like,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, let me know the date. I know that I know I'll be attending SACNAS in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico, but that's the latter part of October. That's like
Yeah,
October
yeah.
27th.
That doesn't, I'm not going to SACNAS unfortunately this year. So, but very cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'll get
Excellent.
at you. So
All right, good deal.
thanks.
All right. Well, have a good evening.
Yep. You too.
And I appreciate the opportunity as always.
No, so thankful. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hey, Jackie.
Hey,
Can
Alex.
you hear
how
me?
you- Yep, I can.
Great. Doing well. How about you?
Good. You're on campus now, or are you gonna be moving?
Not yet. I'm on this Saturday.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
I'm currently in Oklahoma City for my internship, and I'm driving this weekend. I end on Friday, and by Monday I actually start. So
Cool.
we'll be a busy weekend.
Yeah. Good luck moving and travel safe for sure.
I was to ask you the presentation for today. Are you going to send it?
Yes.